My fiancée cheated me at her bachelorette party, so I left her without saying a single word now. This story is titled, My Fiancée Cheated at Her Bachelorette Party, so I left her without saying a single word. I don't even know how to start explaining all of this. Hi everyone. Before we dive in, I need to ask a quick favor. If you enjoy stories like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, helps out the channel, and ensures you never miss one of these wild stories. Okay, let's get into it.
Hey, Reddit. Never in my life did I imagine posting here. But I guess that's what happens when life throws you into situations you never thought you'd face. I just need to get this off my chest.
A little background before I drop the bombshell. Mia and I are both 30. We met 6 years ago when we were 24 at a mutual friend's birthday party. It was one of those random moments you don't expect to change your life. I spotted her across the room laughing at something, and I swear time just stopped. She was radiant, the kind of person who could light up a room with her presence. By the end of the night, we were sitting on a patio talking about everything: music, movies, travel plans. I was hooked, completely. We started dating a few weeks later, and within a year, we moved in together. Things were great, or so I thought. Sure, Mia liked to party more than I did. She was the outgoing one, the life of every event, while I was the more grounded, introverted type. I figured we balanced each other out. When I proposed last year, I was convinced I'd found the one. She cried when I popped the question and said yes before I could even finish asking. We spent months planning our wedding, choosing venues, tasting cakes, even arguing over whether or not to have an open bar. I thought we were building a life together. Turns out I was wrong. The unraveling started with something so small. A package. I wasn't even supposed to be home that early. My shift ended early, and I thought I'd surprise Mia by coming home to cook her dinner. But when I walked up to our apartment door, there was a small gift bag sitting there. It had a glittery tag on it that read, "To the wildest bride-to-be, you deserved every second of it. Love, Tasha." At first, I didn't think much of it. Tasha was Mia's best friend, practically her sister. They'd been inseparable since college. I never loved Tasha. She was loud, dramatic, and lived for chaos. But I tolerated her for Mia's sake. They were the self-proclaimed fun duo. Still, something about that note didn't sit right with me. I brought the bag inside and set it on the kitchen counter. I just stood there, staring at it. Something about it felt off. It's probably nothing, I told myself, but the nagging feeling wouldn't go away. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. I know. Technically it was her stuff, but it was sitting right there. Basically an invitation, right? Inside I found the typical bachelorette party items. A plastic tiara, a bride's last ride sash, and enough glitter to ruin my kitchen for days. But then, at the bottom, I saw them. A pair of men's boxers. Used. My stomach dropped. I told myself it had to be some kind of gag gift, a dumb joke. But it didn't sit right. Then I found the flash drive. I don't know why I decided to check it. Maybe it was the boxers or the nagging feeling that there was more to this. I plugged it into my laptop, telling myself I was overthinking everything. The first video seemed harmless enough. Mia and her friends were at a club, laughing and cheering. Mia was wearing the tiara and sash, looking gorgeous as always. But there was something off. She wasn't just celebrating. She was on another level, almost reckless. The camera zoomed in as she danced on the table, carefree and wild. I told myself it was just a party, no big deal. The second clip shattered that illusion. Mia was kissing someone. Not just a peck, but full-on, passionate. And it wasn't just one clip. The videos got progressively worse. Her grinding on some guy, laughing as her friends egged her on. My hands were shaking by the time I closed the laptop.
I didn't know what to feel. Anger, sadness, betrayal. It was all of it, at once. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the screen. The person I thought I was going to marry, the person I'd spent 6 years of my life with, was someone I didn't even recognize anymore. I packed my things that night. I didn't yell or confront her. I didn't even leave a note. I just left. Sometimes, silence says more than words ever could. Ryan sat motionless in the dim light of his laptop screen, his hands gripping the edge of the desk like it was the only thing keeping him grounded.
His pulse pounded in his ears, drowning out the hum of the ceiling fan above. He hit pause on the video for the 5th time, the image of Mia's carefree smile frozen on the screen as she led the stripper toward the back room. Every instinct screamed at him to stop watching, but he couldn't. He had to know. At first, he told himself it could be innocent. People do wild things at bachelor or bachelorette parties, right? A bit of harmless fun. But deep down, the truth already clawed at his gut, refusing to be silenced. The next clip shattered whatever thin thread of hope he was clinging to. The camera cut to Mia lounging in a circle of men, the atmosphere thick with laughter, drinks, and something else Ryan couldn't quite name but felt all too keenly. One of the guys leaned in to kiss her. She didn't pull away. In fact, she kissed him back, eagerly. Then another guy leaned in, and Mia didn't hesitate to give him the same treatment. The final frame showed her leading all three into what was unmistakably a hotel room. Tasha's voice in the background only poured salt on the wound. "Mia, you're a legend! Bride of the year!" she hollered, laughing like this was the most normal thing in the world. Ryan sat back in his chair, his chest tight, the room suddenly too small to contain the storm brewing inside him. His mind raced, 1,000 memories flashing by. Mia, cuddling up to him on lazy Sunday mornings, excitedly showing him Pinterest boards of wedding ideas, talking about the family they were going to have. The woman in the video wasn't the Mia he thought he knew. She was a stranger. When she came home that evening, her face lit up like nothing had happened. She kissed him on the cheek, casually chatting about wedding decor and how Tasha was such a creative genius. Ryan smiled and nodded, playing the part of the doting fiancé, but inside he felt hollowed out. He couldn't unsee the video, couldn't unhear Tasha's words. Every gesture of hers felt like a mockery, every smile like a lie. That night, he didn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the events of the video replaying in his head on a loop. Every laugh, every touch, every kiss was another knife twisting deeper. He thought about confronting her, about yelling and demanding answers. But what would that achieve? Nothing could undo what he had seen. Nothing could bring back the woman he thought he was marrying. By the time the first light of dawn filtered through the curtains, Ryan had made his decision. He waited for Mia to leave for work, her usual cheerful goodbye ringing hollow as she kissed him on the forehead. "I can't wait to see you tonight, babe," she said with a smile. He forced himself to smile back. "Me too," he lied. As soon as the door closed, he was in motion. He grabbed a duffel bag from the closet and started stuffing it with anything that seemed remotely important. Clothes, his laptop, chargers, toiletries. There was no plan, no list, just a desperate need to get out. For someone who had always been meticulous to a fault, this was uncharted territory. He didn't care about the furniture or the gadgets they'd bought together. Let Mia keep the couch, the TV, the air fryer she loved so much. It was just stuff. None of it mattered anymore. He was done. After throwing the essentials into the bag, he Googled places to stay. A sterile hotel in the city felt suffocating, too close to everything he wanted to leave behind. A small resort 2 hours out of town caught his eye. It was quiet, secluded, and had last-minute availability. Perfect. He booked a room for a week, paying up front without a second thought. Peace of mind was worth the cost. Before leaving, Ryan grabbed the wedding folder from his desk. Every contract, every receipt, every detail of the event he was no longer planning to attend. It was all there. The first call he made was to the venue. "Hi, this is Ryan," he said, forcing his voice to sound steady. "I need to cancel a reservation for a wedding."
The woman on the other end of the line hesitated, her voice tinged with surprise. "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. May I ask why?"
Ryan paused, staring out the window at the life he was about to leave behind. Let's just say the bride made other plans. Can I ask why? The woman on the phone had the typical tone of customer service, a mix of polite curiosity and veiled frustration. But I wasn't about to spill my personal drama to a stranger. I just said, "Change of plans. Life happens, you know." She launched into the usual spiel about cancellation fees and how they'd keep 20% of the deposit. I let her ramble on, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. "That's fine. I interrupted, probably sounding colder than I intended. Just cancel it. With that done, I got into my car and started driving. I didn't even look back at the apartment complex as I pulled out of the lot. It felt surreal, like I wasn't in control of my own actions, just a passenger to some instinct that told me to move forward. The GPS guided me to the resort, but my mind wasn't in the car. It was stuck on the images from that damn flash drive, replaying every frame in an endless loop. Was it really just the party? Or had Mia been hiding this part of herself all along? About halfway there, I stopped at a gas station to fill up and grab some snacks. The neon lights buzzed overhead as I wandered the aisles, tossing bottled water and a few bags of chips into a basket. While I was paying, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't need to check to know it was Mia. Her timing was too predictable. I ignored it, but the buzzing kept going. One call turned into two, then three. Then came the flood of texts. By the time I got back to the car, I could feel the phone vibrating relentlessly in my pocket like an angry wasp. I silenced it without even looking. I wasn't ready for her excuses, her dramatic tears, or her inevitable, "It wasn't what it looked like." None of that mattered anymore. I shoved the phone into the cup holder and kept driving. The resort was smaller than I expected, but it was perfect. A cozy cabin with a king-sized bed, a little kitchenette, a fireplace, and a deck overlooking the lake. It felt like a world away from everything I had just walked out on. I tossed my bags in the corner, sat on the edge of the bed, and exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. It hit me then, the full weight of what I'd just done. This wasn't a fight. It wasn't a temporary breakup. I had left behind my fiancée, my home, and the life I thought I was building. I spent the rest of the day unpacking, but it felt strange seeing my belongings in such an unfamiliar space. Every little sound made me flinch, half expecting Mia to walk in and demand answers. I ate a makeshift dinner, a sandwich I threw together from the snacks I'd bought, and finally checked my phone. Over 20 missed calls. The texts were relentless. They started off light. "Hey babe, where are you? Did you go somewhere without telling me?" But then they shifted. "Ryan, this isn't funny. Where are you? Are you okay? Why is your stuff gone? What's going on?" And finally, desperation. "Please call me. I don't understand what's happening. Please." I didn't respond. Instead, I called my parents. They're the type who never pry unless they absolutely have to. When I told them I'd left Mia and the wedding was off, my mom's voice was calm. "Okay, sweetie. Do you want to tell us what happened?" I kept it vague. "She wasn't who I thought she was," I said. My dad chimed in. "Good for you, son. Better to find out now than later." They didn't press me for details, which I appreciated. I told them I'd be staying at a resort to clear my head, and they offered their full support. That first night in the cabin was eerie. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak of the wood or the distant call of an owl. I kept expecting Mia to barge in, screaming or crying, demanding an explanation, but she never came. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I thought about everything I had invested in our relationship. The time, the money, the endless compromises, especially her obsession with Tasha. And for what? So she could throw it all away in one night of debauchery? By the time I finally drifted off, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going back. Not for her tears, not for her apologies, and definitely not for her empty promises. But one thing kept gnawing at me. Tasha. She wasn't just some innocent bystander. If anything, she was the mastermind. The video wasn't just a careless recording. It was deliberate. That smug note on the package, "You deserved every second of it," was practically a confession. Tasha had always rubbed me the wrong way. From the moment I met her, she exuded a toxic energy. She was loud, always cracking sarcastic jokes and monopolizing every conversation. Mia thought she was hilarious, but I always found her exhausting. Over time, I tolerated her for Mia's sake, but deep down, I knew she couldn't be trusted. Looking back, I wondered how many red flags I had ignored, flags that now seemed as bright as day. Tasha had this knack for pushing Mia into things, even when we had plans together. She would constantly convince Mia to go out, urging her to live a little. I would sit at home waiting, only to hear the door creak open at 2 a.m., with Mia stumbling in, drunk, and Tasha laughing in the background. Every time, without fail, she would shout some variation of, "Sorry for stealing your girl, Ryan," like it was some kind of joke. I used to brush it off, laughing along to avoid being the buzzkill. But now, sitting at this resort, miles away from the city, and with way too much time to think, it no longer felt funny. It felt humiliating. And I was done laughing.
I knew Mia wasn't the one I needed to confront, at least not yet. Tasha, on the other hand, had her fingerprints all over this mess. She was the ringleader, the instigator, the one who made reckless seem glamorous. If I was going to get answers, it had to start with her.
I didn't want to call her outright. It felt too direct, too easy to dodge. Instead, I downloaded one of those burner phone apps and sent her a cryptic text. "Hey, it's Ryan. We need to talk about Mia. Meet me at the coffee shop on 7th tomorrow at noon." She replied almost instantly, as if she'd been waiting for drama to unfold.
What the fuck? Are you okay? Is Mia okay? What's this about?
I didn't respond. Let her stew on it. The next day, I drove back to the city, parking a few blocks away from the coffee shop. Through the window, I saw her first. A pink blazer that screamed, "Notice me," impossibly high heels, and oversized sunglasses perched on her face like she was hiding from the paparazzi. Tasha always had a way of making an entrance, even if no one cared to look. When I walked in, her surprised expression quickly morphed into a practiced smile. "Ryan, you scared me with that text. What's going on?" she asked, her tone light, as if this were just a casual catch-up. I didn't bother with pleasantries. "Cut the crap, Tasha. I know about the bachelorette party." Her smile faltered for half a second before she caught herself. What do you mean?" she asked, feigning confusion, but I could see the guilt creeping into her eyes. "I mean the flash drive, the videos, the package you left on my doorstep. I know everything," I said, my voice calm but firm. She blinked, then let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, come on, Ryan. It's just bachelorette party stuff. You're not seriously upset about that, are you?" "Upset?" I leaned back in my chair, letting the word hang in the air. "That's an understatement. What kind of best friend encourages someone to cheat on their fiancé and then sends them a highlight reel?" Her face turned beet red, but she recovered quickly. "It wasn't like that," she said, her words tumbling out fast. "It was just a fun night. No harm, no foul." I pulled out my phone, opening the screenshots I'd saved. I slid it across the table. "No harm? Then explain these messages. Bride of the year, you owned that stage, girl. Don't feel guilty. It's your last chance to be free. Does that look like no harm to you?" Her eyes widened, and she tried to shove the phone back toward me. "Ryan, you are taking this way too seriously. It's just tradition, you know? Every bride deserves one wild night." "Tradition?" My voice rose slightly, earning a glance from the barista behind the counter. "Is that what you call it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you were egging her on the whole time." Tasha sighed, crossing her arms. "Look, I didn't force her to do anything, okay? She's a grown woman. She made her own choices." "And you were right there cheering her on," I shot back. "You were supposed to have her back, Tasha. Instead, you helped her blow up everything we built together." She rolled her eyes, her frustration slipping through the cracks. "Oh, please. It's not like she doesn't love you. It was just a one-night thing. You guys can move past this." That was it. I slammed my hand on the table, making her jump. "Move past this? You think I can just forget about her sleeping with 3 guys because you call it a one-night thing? You're unbelievable!" She glanced around nervously, clearly aware of the stares we were getting. Lowering her voice, she said, "Okay, fine. I'm sorry if it got out of hand, but honestly, Ryan, this is between you and Mia. Do not drag me into it." "You're already in it," I said, standing up. "And trust me, Tasha, everyone is going to know exactly what kind of friend you are." Her eyes widened in panic. "What does that mean?" "You'll find out soon enough," I said, grabbing my phone and walking out. On the drive back to the resort, her words replayed in my head. She's a grown woman. She made her own choices. As much as I hated to admit it, Tasha was right about that. Mia had made her own decisions. Tasha might have been the spark, but Mia was the one who lit the fire. And suddenly, the woman I thought I knew felt like a stranger. When I got back to the cabin, I felt like my brain was spinning at 100 miles per hour. I opened my laptop and started drafting an email, hands shaking just enough to make typing annoying. Confronting Mia in person wasn't something I could stomach yet, not after what I'd seen. But I also knew one thing for sure. There was no way in hell I was letting Tasha spin this whole mess to make herself look like the victim. So I attached everything, the screenshots, the videos, even that blurry photo someone thought was funny enough to send in the group chat. I sent it to a handful of mutual friends, just the ones I knew wouldn't turn this into some gossip tornado. The kind who'd wait for me to tell the full story before running their mouths. After that meeting with Tasha, I didn't hear from her again. And honestly, I wasn't surprised. What could she say at that point? There's no apology that works when the truth is staring you in the face like that. And even if she did say something, I didn't care. She wasn't my problem anymore. My next move was obvious. At least it felt that way at the time. I had to tell Mia's parents. If anyone deserved to know the truth, it was them. These were the same people who had spent the last 3 years judging me like I was some kind of rebellious teenager crashing their precious family dinners. Mia's mom, Janet, had this knack for making every interaction feel like a polite interrogation. When Mia and I moved in together, Janet didn't come right out and say she disapproved, but the constant passive-aggressive comments did the job just fine. "You know, Ryan, it's just not proper to live together before marriage," she'd say, smiling like it was a compliment. And let's not even talk about how she'd side-eye every single thing I said about our apartment. Her dad, Henry, wasn't much better. He kept quiet most of the time, but his disapproving grunts and the classic line, "Back in my day, we did things differently," made it clear he was no fan of mine either. It wasn't until Mia and I got engaged that they started treating me like I had a pulse. Suddenly, Janet was talking about bridal showers, and Henry was offering to help us with a down payment on a house. Like some invisible finish line had been crossed, and now I was part of the club. But all of that went out the window when I found out what Mia had done. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the fact that they had spent years acting like Mia was this perfect, untouchable princess, while quietly judging me like I wasn't good enough for her. They needed to know the truth. In the days after I confronted Tasha, Mia's texts and calls became relentless. Every time my phone buzzed, it was another message like, "Ryan, please answer me. I love you. We need to talk." Or, "Don't give up on us. I'll do anything to fix this." I didn't respond. Not once. She made her choices, and I wasn't about to let her play the victim now. Then came Janet's text. "Ryan, what is going on? Mia is a wreck. Please call me. We're worried." I stared at the message for what felt like forever. My gut twisted, but I knew what I had to do. If anyone was going to deal with Mia, it wasn't going to be me. Let her parents handle it. After all, they always acted like they knew better anyway. The next day, I drove into the city and went straight to Janet and Henry's house. I didn't tell Mia I was going, and I could already imagine her losing it when she found out. When Janet opened the door, her face lit up with this mix of relief and concern.
"Oh, Ryan, thank God you're here. What is going on? Mia is so worried about you," she said, ushering me inside.
Henry was in his usual spot in the living room, flipping through a newspaper like it was still the 1950s. He looked up and nodded. "Ryan," he said, "glad you're here. Maybe you can tell us what's going on." I sat down on their perfectly pristine couch, the kind of couch that screams, "We don't actually sit here unless we have guests." I took a deep breath. "I came to tell you the truth," I said, my voice steady, even though I felt anything but calm. "You're going to want to sit down for this." Janet frowned, but sat across from me, clutching her hands together like she already knew something bad was coming. Henry leaned forward in his chair, his eyebrows furrowing. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder of evidence. "Mia has been lying to you," I said, "and to me. The wedding is off because of what she did at her bachelorette party." Janet gasped. "What are you talking about? What could she have possibly done that's so bad?" I handed her my phone. "Watch this." She hesitated, her eyes darting between me and the screen. Then she pressed play. Her expression shifted from confused to horrified in real time.
Oh my God,
she whispered, her voice trembling.
This cannot be real. Tell me this isn't real.
Henry stood up, his face turning red with anger. What's going on? Let me see that. Janet handed him the phone, tears streaming down her face. And that was it. The moment their perfect little world shattered. Henry sat across from me, his eyes blazing with a mix of anger and disbelief. His jaw tightened as if he was physically holding back the urge to say something he might regret. The phone trembled in his hands as he gripped it like a lifeline. I could see him processing, piecing together the shards of a reality he didn't want to confront. This is what she did, I said, my voice even but firm, the calm before a storm. She didn't just betray me. She turned it into a public spectacle, and her friends egged her on every step of the way. Janet, who had been sitting in stunned silence, buried her face in her hands, her sobs muffled but unrelenting.
I can't believe this, she choked out. I can't believe Mia would do something like this.
Henry couldn't sit still. He started pacing the room, his fists clenched tightly at his sides.
That girl. That damn girl,
he muttered, his voice dripping with frustration.
We raised her better than this. What the hell was she thinking?
She wasn't thinking, I said flatly. And now she wants me to forgive her. But I'm done. I thought you both deserved to know because I'm not cleaning up her mess anymore.
Janet looked up at me, her tear-streaked face desperate.
Ryan, please, can't you just talk to her? Maybe this was all some big mistake. Maybe she was pressured.
She wasn't pressured, I snapped, cutting her off. She made her choices, Janet, and I'm not going to spend the rest of my life waiting for her to screw up again. I deserve better.
Henry stopped pacing, his fingers stabbing the air as he turned to Janet. This is exactly what happens when she listens to that damn Tasha instead of us. I told you Tasha was trouble. I told you.
Janet nodded weakly, wiping her face. We should have done something. We should have stopped her from moving in with you. Maybe none of this would have happened.
I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. You think me moving in with her was the issue? You've been so obsessed with appearances that you never saw the real problem. Mia has been reckless for a long time, and now it's caught up with her. Henry slumped back into his chair, shaking his head.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
I stood, brushing off their stunned silence like it was nothing. Look, I'm sorry to drop this on you, but it's your problem now. Mia will probably come crying to you for help, and you can decide how to handle it. I've already made my decision. As I turned to leave, Janet grabbed my arm. Her voice was trembling.
Ryan, please, don't tell anyone else about this. Think of the embarrassment for our family.
I gently pulled my arm free, looking her straight in the eyes. That's not my problem anymore, Janet. You'll have to figure that out yourselves. The drive back to the resort felt surreal. For years, Mia's parents had looked down on me, silently judging, treating me like I wasn't good enough for their golden child. Now, they were drowning in the truth. Their perfect daughter had single-handedly destroyed everything. The satisfaction wasn't as sweet as I had imagined, but it was closure. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from Janet. Her voice was raw, the weight of the situation heavy in every word. Ryan, it's Janet. I don't even know what to say. Henry and I are devastated. We confronted Mia,
and she's completely falling apart. She says she doesn't know how to fix this. Honestly, neither do we. I just wanted to tell you how sorry we are. If you ever want to talk, we're here.
I deleted the message without a second thought. Whatever Mia had to say, whatever her parents wanted to hash out, it wasn't my burden anymore. Let her explain herself to them. Let them try to piece it all back together. I was done being her safety net. But walking away wasn't enough. As the hours passed, I felt the anger simmering just beneath the surface. If I stayed silent, Mia and her crew would sweep this under the rug like it never happened. I wasn't about to let that slide. People deserve to know the truth. The first person I reached out to was Rachel, one of Mia's closest friends. She wasn't as chaotic as Tasha, but she was complicit. She was there that night, cheering Mia on like it was all just harmless fun. I sent her a blunt text. Rachel, I know what happened at the Bachelorette party. I have the videos and messages to prove it.
Do not play dumb. We need to talk. Her response was almost instant. My phone buzzed with an incoming call, and when I answered, her voice was shaky, teetering between guilt and panic.
Ryan, what the hell is this? Where did you get this? I asked, keeping my tone calm even though my head was a mess.
Does it matter where I got it? You were there. You saw everything.
Rachel stammered, trying to piece together a response. She sounded nervous, guilty even. Finally, she blurted out, I didn't know it was that bad, okay? I thought it was just some dancing and flirting. I didn't know...
You didn't know she disappeared with 3 guys? I cut her off, my voice sharper now. You didn't know she cheated on me in front of all of you? Rachel went silent. For a second, I thought she might have hung up on me, but then I heard her sigh. Look, Ryan, I'm sorry. I should have said something. But it's not like I could stop her, she said weakly.
I almost laughed. That was her defense? Mia talked about how boring marrying you would be, Rachel continued hesitantly, and she wanted one last fun night. Tasha was the one hyping her up. And Mia, well, she was drunk and just going along with it.
Going along with it? I repeated, my tone icy. That's your excuse? She wasn't just going along with it, Rachel. She made those choices, sober or not. And you stood there and let her. Rachel tried to backpedal. I didn't think it was my place to stop her, she muttered.
It was your place, I snapped. You're her friend. A real friend would have stopped her.
She didn't have much to say after that. By the end of the call, she mumbled another apology and promised to talk to Mia. I wasn't holding my breath.
The next domino to fall was Tasha. I didn't have to do much there because Mia's parents, Janet and Henry, had gone full damage control. They must have laid into her after I left their house because the next day, Mia called me over 20 times. I didn't answer a single one. Then Tasha texted me, and let me tell you, her tone was anything but friendly. Ryan, what the hell are you telling people? Mia is a mess, and now everyone's acting weird with me. You need to stop this, she wrote.
I couldn't help but smirk when I read it. Tasha was finally feeling the heat. I didn't even bother responding. Let her squirm.
But the best part? That came when Rachel spilled the beans to the rest of their friend group. She might have been complicit in Mia's behavior, but Rachel wasn't about to go down with the ship. She started distancing herself from both Mia and Tasha, telling anyone who would listen that she didn't know the full extent of what happened, and that she never would have supported it if she had. By the end of the week, the story was everywhere.
Mia had gone from being the fun bride-to-be to the pariah of her own social circle. One of the mutual friends in their group, Chloe, reached out to me. We weren't particularly close, but she'd always been polite and respectful whenever we hung out in group settings. Her message caught me off guard.
Hey, Ryan. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything you're going through. I had no idea Mia was capable of something like that. If there's anything you need, let me know.
Meanwhile, Mia was still trying to get in touch with me. The calls had slowed down, but the texts kept coming.
Ryan, I know you're mad, but we need to talk. Please, I'll do anything to fix this. Just tell me what to do.
It was almost pathetic. She wasn't apologizing because she felt bad about what she did. She was apologizing because her life was falling apart. Then Tasha and Mia finally had their falling out. From what Chloe told me, it started as a quiet disagreement, but quickly escalated into a full-blown screaming match. Tasha, fed up with being blamed for everything, snapped.
Don't act like I made you do anything, she yelled. You were all in. Stop playing the victim.
Chloe texted me later with the update. Tasha and Mia aren't speaking anymore. Tasha is telling everyone Mia used her as a scapegoat. It's a mess. I couldn't help but feel a small sense of satisfaction. For years, Tasha had acted untouchable, manipulating people and causing drama. Watching her unravel was almost poetic. The last I heard from Janet, Mia was completely falling apart. At first, it seemed like typical emotional fallout, crying, begging, the usual. But as the days went on, I started hearing bits and pieces from mutual acquaintances about how bad things had really gotten for her. Apparently, Mia's parents had reached their breaking point. After I exposed everything, Janet tried to talk some sense into Mia. And how did Mia respond? She blamed me. She said I overreacted, that I should have been more understanding, and that it wasn't fair for me to ruin her life over one mistake. One mistake. That's what she called it. I wish I could say I was surprised, but at this point I'd stopped expecting anything better from her.
Janet and Henry were the kind of parents who cared about appearances more than anything else. To them, maintaining a spotless reputation in front of their friends, extended family, and community was a full-time job. So when Mia's issues started becoming public knowledge, it was like a nightmare they couldn't wake up from. The idea of their daughter's personal drama being gossip at every dinner party and family gathering made them see red. And when it became clear Mia wasn't owning up to her mistakes, or even attempting to fix the mess, Janet and Henry reached their breaking point. It wasn't an empty threat when they told her she had to leave. They packed her belongings into boxes, dragged them to the porch, and left them there like trash waiting for pickup. Henry, always the silent enforcer, stood in the doorway while Janet laid down the final blow. "You are an embarrassment to this family," she said coldly, the words slicing through any chance Mia might have had to plead her case. "Don't come back until you've learned how to take responsibility for yourself." And with that, the door was shut, literally and figuratively. Mia's first instinct was to call Tasha, her closest friend, hoping she could crash on her couch until things cooled down. But that plan fell apart almost immediately. Tasha, already exhausted by the drama, wasn't having it. Their last fight had been so explosive that the friendship was barely hanging on by a thread, and Mia's request was the final straw. Tasha told her point blank that letting her stay would only drag her deeper into the chaos. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice sharp and final.
Desperate, Mia started reaching out to other friends, but the response was a resounding no across the board. Rachel straight up ignored her calls, and the rest of the group didn't even bother with excuses. They had already distanced themselves long before this latest meltdown. By the end of the week, Mia was couch surfing wherever she could find a semi-willing host. It was a revolving door of temporary arrangements, none of which lasted more than a night or two. As if losing her home and her friends wasn't bad enough, the financial fallout hit like a freight train. Mia's cushy office job, something she'd landed thanks to Henry pulling strings, was the last thread of stability she had left. But without her father there to shield her, that thread snapped fast. Her manager had been unimpressed with her performance for months. Mia had been warned repeatedly about her tardiness and lack of focus, but the final nail in the coffin came when her personal drama started seeping into the workplace. Gossip about her fallout with her parents and friends spread like wildfire, and her boss decided she wasn't worth the hassle. The official excuse was downsizing, but everyone knew what it really meant.
When Chloe told me Mia had been fired, I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a bit of schadenfreude. Not because I wanted her to fail, but because it felt like justice in a way. For years, Mia had skated through life, letting everyone else clean up her messes. Now, for the first time, she had to face the consequences of her actions without a safety net. Out of options, Mia tried going back to the one place she swore she'd never return: her parents' house. She showed up unannounced, tears streaming down her face as she begged them to let her come home. "I have nowhere else to go," she sobbed. "Please, I'll do better. I'll take responsibility. Just let me come back." But Janet and Henry were immovable. Their trust had been shattered, and they weren't about to cave. "We warned you," Janet said, her voice as icy as ever. "You made your choices. Now you live with them." By this point, Mia was spiraling. She sent me a string of messages that ranged from desperate to outright pitiful. "Ryan, please talk to me. I have no one else. I am so sorry for everything. I lost my job, my home, my friends, everything. Please give me another chance. Just tell me what you want me to do. I will do anything." I didn't respond. I couldn't. Letting her back into my life would just reopen old wounds, and I wasn't willing to do that. Eric, one of our mutual friends, gave me an update a few days later. Mia had reached out to him, hoping he'd let her crash at his place. But Eric, being the no-nonsense guy he is, shut her down immediately. "She's in a bad way, man," he told me, crying on the phone, saying she doesn't know what to do. But I told her straight up, this isn't my problem. He wasn't being cruel. He just knew Mia's pattern too well. He wasn't about to let her manipulate him like she had done with so many others. Eventually, Chloe told me that Mia managed to scrape together enough money to rent a room in a rundown apartment across town. It was a far cry from the comfort she was used to. She picked up a part-time job at a coffee shop, but it barely covered the bills. "She's barely hanging on," Chloe said. "I don't think she has ever been this low."
The most shocking part was how fast everyone turned their backs on her. Mia used to be the queen bee of her friend group, the one who planned the parties and kept everyone connected. But now, when she needed help the most, no one wanted to be in her corner. Tasha washed her hands of the situation entirely, saying, "She is not my responsibility anymore." Rachel ghosted her, tired of the endless drama. Even Chloe, who had tried to stay neutral for as long as possible, eventually stopped taking her calls. Mia had burned every bridge she had, and now she was stuck trying to rebuild her life from the ground up. As for me, I was moving on. Every day felt like a step further from the chaos she had brought into my life. Mia was on her own now, and honestly, that was exactly where she needed to be.